If you thought this week off for the Montreal Canadiens would mean that our show would be off, you are sorely mistaken. We have a lot to get to with the Montreal Canadiens, including Carey Price speaking and that debacle over the weekend against the Oilers. Oh, yeah, and against the Blue Jackets, too. They've done a lot of losing. We'll talk about that on this week's edition of Hockey Inside Out. I'm Julian McKenzie with the usual suspects. Stu Cowan from the Montreal Gazette is here. Rick Green is here. Jessica Rusnak from CBC Daybreak Montreal is also here. We're jumping right into the topics. We're going to start with Carey Price. Before Sunday's game against Columbus, maybe you were watching football at the same time, but he spoke to the media. I believe it's for the first time since he exited the player assistance program, and also in light of him having to restart rehab on his knee. He intends on playing, but we don't really know what the odds are that he will come back. Jess, I was wondering what other takeaways you gathered from that press conference with Carey Price.
I was just surprised how honest he was throughout that press conference, how he mentioned that he had 2 setbacks when he got to this point of his rehab process right now with his knee, and just how crucial the next month is going to be to see how his knee heals and if he can kind of move on to the next step and get a little bit closer to playing again. He also didn't rule out the possibility of his knee never healing properly and never being able to be the goaltender that we saw. So I thought that was pretty unique for the Montreal Canadiens to really come out and tell you what's been going on with Carey Price. But I know he wants to play again because he's a hockey player and that's his job. But really the way the season is going, I don't really see a point in having him come back in. It's almost like, you know what, Carey, let's just shut you down for the rest of the year. It hasn't been easy, your knee healing from this operation. So let's not risk it. Give yourself a year, start fresh with everyone else next year.
Yeah, the main takeaway for me is when he did say he was asked, could this be career ending? And he said, I don't know. And you have to think that it could be because he's had many knee injuries in his career and he never recovers in the time period that they say they expect him to recover from. So both times he went on the ice, and you got to remember when he went on the ice, he wasn't taking shots. He wasn't even in equipment the first time he went back on the ice, and the knee flared up again. So you have to wonder, and he is wondering, obviously, that this maybe is the end of his career. Maybe he won't be able to bounce back from that. As he said, we'll know more over the next couple of weeks. He was on the ice again on Tuesday in Brassard for about 20, 25 minutes in equipment. Again, though, not taking shots. So, yeah, this is, we might have seen the last of Carey Price, and he, didn't shoot that down. And to me, that was the main takeaway from it. When asked, was just saying, I'd wonder too, like at this point, what's the point of bringing him back? You may as well just let him heal 100%, take the rest of the year. But as he said, big part of his identity is being goalie for the Montreal Canadiens. I asked him about if he had thought about maybe moving his, waiving his no trade clause. And he said, well, I haven't even thought about that yet. When I signed my deal here, it's because I wanted to stay in Montreal. But that could change. I think one of the reasons he wants to come back and play is he wants to prove to himself and to the rest of the league he can still play. And I think the Canadiens would like him to come back because if they are looking to move him, it's hard to move a goalie when he hasn't played and nobody knows what his health status is. So if he does come back and hopefully it heals and he comes back and he's able to play 5 or 10 games and he looks good, I think in the offseason he might have second thoughts about whether he wants to move that no trade clause, because if this is going to be a full rebuild, I'm not sure if Carey Price is going to want to stick around for that.
Yeah, and I mean, I really didn't get a very positive feel for his comments. He was really doubting his full recovery on this, and I sensed a real fear of Carey Price having a concern of not being able to come back and play up to the capabilities that he was playing before. And that's really tough on an athlete, especially for a goalie that's had so much success over his career. But he talked about also the setbacks that he's had, and I've really read a lot of concern into him coming back to play. And there's a lot of questions. And again, I don't know the timing of all this. And Stu, you mentioned before, this has been an ongoing, dragging situation that we're waiting for some kind of positive saying, yeah, the thing is healing. I can start working out. I can start to do some of the things, get myself back in shape. And I think, like everybody else, we're waiting to hear that comment that it's full steam ahead, let me get back into the groove and see what I can do. But judging by what he said, I'm really concerned that the process is going to move forward on a very positive note.
And if you remember back when Stefan Wake got fired last season, this is before we knew Carey Price had any knee problems or needed knee surgery. Stefan Wake talked about all the injuries that Carey Price has dealt with, his back, his knee, his hip, and basically saying that, he can't play 60 games a year anymore. He can't play 3 games in a row. He's a goalie now who can play maybe 50 games a year. And when you're making $10.5 million, we're talking earlier, but if the Canes decide maybe they want to move him, boy, even if you eat half of that contract, it's hard to trade a guy with all the injury issues. And don't forget, he also had the off-ice issues when he went into the player assistance program. So there's a lot of question marks hanging around Carey Price right now. And even he wasn't able to answer a lot of them because he doesn't know. I mean, that's the thing. It just came across as just said he was being honest. He doesn't know. And we'll find out over the next couple of weeks if he can continue progressing on the ice, or if they have to shut him down. If they have to shut him down again, then you really have to wonder if his career might be over.
Yeah, 707 career games for Carey Price. This is a guy who has had so much. He's gone through a lot. There's a lot of mileage on him. I got the sense of desperation from him listening to him. This is a guy who mentioned that playing hockey is in his identity. And I think he even mentioned if the rehab didn't work out again, he would do this again. This is a guy who, I mean, whether or not he's actually going to do it is a whole other thing. But this is a guy who very much wants to come back. But I don't know if the Canadiens will ever get that Carey Price at a high level ever again. I don't think they're going to get a guy who can play 60, 70 games ever again. We're not talking about a guy at 28, 29 anymore. We're talking about a guy who's, again, played over 700 career games in the NHL. He's done a lot for this franchise. And I don't know. I just feel that listening to him in that press conference, I got some desperation. But then again, if we were all in that same place, we'd all maybe think the same way too. Maybe we'd all would want to get back on the ice and do everything we can to continue being a hockey player and continue to help out this team. And I also wonder if the Canadiens are even thinking of shipping him off, if other teams are thinking, you know what, we could use a Carey Price. But again, those injuries, well, it's a lot.
And the part about it is identity also, Julian. I mean, he's been a hockey player. That's all these guys know, right? I mean,
that's it.
Rick knows that. I mean, he lived it. That's their whole life is regimented, right? You get up in the morning, practice, morning skate, game, you have your routine. Everything's a routine. These guys aren't used to sitting at home all day and having so much free time. Their life is scheduled for them from the time they start playing junior hockey. It is their life. And as he said, it's his identity for the last 14 years has been as goalie of the Montreal Canadiens.
And my question is, okay, was the surgery done successfully? Like, I mean, did they do the right job that allows him to continue playing, or is it just a combination of surgery, age, and just wear and tear that's not going to allow him to heal? And usually, I've heard over the years, there's been a number of cases where they've had to go back in and redo something that they felt that they didn't get done correctly. And I have never heard any type of comment directed towards, maybe there's a chance that we can go back and try another attempt to see if we can fix him up to allow him to get on the ice and continue to play. So it's an interesting time, to say the least.
And if you go back and go ahead, Jess.
Go ahead, Jess.
It reminds me a lot of Andrei Markov. Remember when he had his knee surgery and it didn't go well, and it was almost, I believe, 2 years that it took him to really recover from that. But in this situation, it's different. It's your goaltender, and how long can you wait for him? And you understand why Carey Price said, I would do this again, because I think we all feel that way, that we would all try to do as much as we can to get ourselves healthy and be what you need to be. But I don't know how patient the Montreal Canadiens will be.
And if you go back and watch the shows we did before the season, when the Canadiens were saying Carey Price would be ready to start the season, this is before we knew about the off-ice issues. I remember saying, I'll believe it when I see it, because they've never been right.
You did.
Predicting when Carey Price would come back from an injury. He doesn't heal well, whether it's the wear and tear and the constant knee issues. He doesn't heal well. He doesn't, as I said back then, the first time the Canadiens are correct predicting when Carey Price comes back from an injury will be the first time. The next time will be the first time. They've never been right.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see with Carey Price and whether or not he'll be able to come back this year. I think that's pretty, I don't want to say doubtful. I'll rate that as questionable. I'd be stunned if we saw him back before like April. Like I think just for him, if he comes back for 2-3 games or something, that's just good for his spirits and just good for, fans for the Montreal Canadiens to just see him play. But I'd be stunned if he was back like in March or something. At this point, if he's not even taking shots, like we all need to temper our expectations with when Carey Price could be back. I'll move from that question to Saturday night's game against the Edmonton Oilers. A lot happened. A lot of goals were scored by the Edmonton Oilers. None of them scored by Connor McDavid against the Montreal Canadiens, mind you. But one play that had a lot of people talking was Sam Montembeault being run over by Zack Kassian, and no one really did anything to stand up for Sam Montembeault. Stu, what did you think of the incident, and what did you think of the Canadiens' response?
Well, just when you think the Canadiens have reached the lowest point of the season, they go lower, and that was by far, to me, the lowest point of the season, the lowest point in many seasons. A team that's just given up, a team that doesn't care. I mean, you go back to Michael McNiven playing his first NHL game when he got put in the third period of Minnesota, and his teammates hung him out to dry. And then Sam Montembeault, who's been bombarded with shots this season, goes behind the net, make a routine play, and Kassian just runs him right over. And it showed me Jeff Petrie isn't going to fight Kassian. He's going to get beat up bad, but nothing, not even a push, not even a shove, not even a word, not anything. It showed me just how much Jeff Petrie doesn't care anymore in Montreal. The A was taken off his sweater for the next game. But it was just such a bad look. And as Dominic Ducharme said after the game, he's not saying they need to fight, but he wants 5 guys in there afterwards. And if Jeff Petrie does go in and shove Kassian's not the kind of guy who's going to drop the gloves and start pounding on Jeff Petrie. But it was just, you don't need to fight, but you need to do something. You need to show that that's not okay. And Kassian looked like he was waiting for it. Like he was standing there. Okay. And then nobody came and he went, okay, well, I guess I'll just skate to the penalty box. And that is just such a bad look. And it just shows me a bunch of guys who don't care about the crest on the front of their sweater. They don't really care about the name on the back because that's an embarrassment to do nothing. And they don't care about their teammates. They don't care. And there's almost half a season left. And to me, that's a really bad sign going to the rest of the season. Other teams around the league, they know now also the Canadiens don't care. Run the goalie, do whatever you want. Nothing's going to happen to you.
And they always talk about how close they are as a group. And this, incident just shows you how far they are as a group. And for something like this to go down, and again, nobody has to jump in there and fight them, but at least show up and show that, listen, you just don't do that to our goalie. He's supposed to be one of the guys you're supposed to protect and, at all costs. And to do something, and see something that deliberately happen and then just have the group basically, like you said, just kind of look the other way. And that's not what teams do. That's not what they're supposed to do. And if you look around the league, you can see and talk about a number of occasions where there's actually been a clean hit that has been given to somebody, and one of the teammates of the guy that received the hit jumps in there to fight the guy because it's like, oh no, you're not supposed to hit my teammate like that, so I'm jumping in there. And that's just a situation or an occasion where it shows you that there's a good group, they care for each other, and they stand up for each other. But this is obviously a real bad feel. Those type of things don't go away. They fester in the room. They fester in the league when you see something like that. And totally unacceptable. And it's really, really sad and disappointing to see that representation of the group not being able to respond in any type of way, saying, we'll accept that, really don't care. And that seems to be the way the year's going.
Yeah, it's a total lack of respect, especially that Samuel Montembeault, he's a rookie, he's not a veteran in this league, and he's been put in a tough position this year, hasn't got much help from his teammates. And then it looked like Jeff Petrie went up to Zack Kassian and asked him how he's been enjoying his time in Montreal. There was nothing vicious, no sending any kind of message. And as you mentioned, Stu, no one's expecting Jeff Petrie to fight him. Like, I think about when Max Pacioretty got pushed into the stanchions by Zdeno Chara. Scott Gomez came after him,
Of
he's
all
like,
people.
Yeah.
exactly. He goes up to like Chara's knee. No one expected there to be a fight between Gomez and Chara, but it was just him, responding and respecting his teammate and coming to his defense. And there was none of that. And that's just like the saddest part about it, that you can't just say that they're not a team on the ice, but away from the ice, it brings up a lot of questions about this team and how close they are, as Rick mentioned, and what's going on in that locker room.
And players around the league watch the highlights of other games, right? And they would see that. And I'm sure it was a conversation in other teams' locker rooms. Did you see what happened with the Canadiens last night? And they didn't do anything. Like, that goes around the league. I saw some comments on social media, guys saying like, my Tuesday night old timers league would have had a bigger response to a goalie getting run over. And it's true. I mean, it's one of the longest rules in hockey. You don't hit the goalie, and if you do, there's a price to pay for it. And the Canadiens, again, there's been a lot of low points this season, and that was the lowest. And it just shows. And as Rick said, they're always talking about how good they are in the room. And Mark Bergevin used to talk about how when Shea Weber was here, the culture he created is going to last for a long time. Boy, it sure didn't last very long, did it?
Yeah, I have questions about that because I think if Shea Weber and Joel Edmondson and some of those other veterans that the team was missing, even a Paul Byron, who got to play the following night, if they were around, I don't know if that happens. But what does it say that they tried very hard to instill that culture in the team and they haven't been there for as long as they were, and then that happens? Like, I don't know. That I have to, like, that doesn't reflect well on the teachings of the last few years with the core in place with this team. This doesn't look good at all.
Well, if Paul Byron was on the ice, I can almost guarantee you he would have done something, even though he's 5'9" or whatever he is. That's just the type of player Paul Byron is. But there's not a lot of guys like that on this team. Obviously, there's 5 guys on the ice, and all 5 of them did absolutely nothing.
Brendan Gallagher also deserves a mention too. He didn't play that game, but something should have been done in that moment. And Jesse bring up a really good point with Sam Montembeault too. He's been put into a very tough situation, essentially just as a stopgap until everyone gets healthy again. And he got the worst of it. And also, I couldn't help but think that in a parallel universe, Zack Kassian is doing that the other way for the Montreal Canadiens. But, well, that never really worked out here.
But this has been a problem for a while for the Canadiens. We're talking about Carey Price's injuries. Look at how many times Carey Price got run in his career. And I remember the one time Carey got up himself and started punching the guy with his blocker when he realized nobody was going to come to his defense. So this has been an issue for a while with the Canadiens, but I've never seen it as bad as it was that game against the Oilers.
And I think, once in a while you have to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And when I say that, I look back in 1977, Bernie Wolf, we were playing the Islanders. Bernie Wolf took a jab at Bobby Nystrom, speared him, and I just happened to be in the area. So you know what? I was like going, oh no, I guess I got to do what I, at that time, thought I should do. So anyways, I survived it, but I have to say that you have to kind of step in there, even though it's not part of your makeup. You have to do something for the team and make sure that everybody knows on your team and throughout the league that you're there for each and every guy each and every night.
Well, Michael Pezzetta did do that in the third period.
He did
with Kassian, but he had 5 minutes of ice time in that game. And the way this Canadiens team is playing, why does Michael Pezzetta only get 5 minutes of ice time when he's one of the few guys out there who shows that he still really cares?
Rick, you think I could find that clip of you hauling ass on YouTube?
You probably could. You probably could see it. Actually, strangely enough, I cut him over the eye, and I don't know how I did it because I was holding on for dear life.
All right, I'll do that after we finish this. As of this recording, I believe the Montreal Canadiens have as many wins as Rick Green had with the Washington Capitals that one year. Am I right? Yeah, that's the last time I'll make that joke.
Yeah, that sounds right. Don't remind me.
I can't imagine what that season would have been like for you as a young player and other young players with the Washington Capitals. So also thinking of what the Canadiens now, like I can't imagine this does any good for some of their young players. We already know how bad of a season Cole Caulfield is having. Well, Nick Suzuki is trying his absolute best, and at the very least, he'll be an all-star at the end of this week. I'm curious, Rick, how do you think this season, playing out as it is right now for the Canadiens, will affect those younger players? Will it have an effect?
I believe it will. Unfortunately, the way this year has gone on, there's so many bad things that are happening. The young players are picking up bad habits. They're in that environment that a lot of things that go on in the game, whether they're young or older players, none of them are held accountable for not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, you look at their line changes, you go down to, turning pucks over, one-on-one battles, all those type of things that should be part of the makeup of your hockey team. And most of the players don't really care about doing that. And as a young player, you're looking for direction. You're looking for, getting information on how the game should be played at the NHL level. And to be in that environment, as long as this has been going on, it's a bad situation. And I think it's going to take a while for them to recover, if you will, from so many bad, indications on and off the ice that are going on. And it's time for them to shake up what they have as far as their group of Montreal Canadian players.
Yeah, as much as you want to say they'll just forget about it and move on, it's not going to be easy, especially because the veterans aren't doing a good job of showing, the season's not going the way we hope, but this is the way you need to act as a pro, even though we're losing games. They're completely checked out and they're not being a good role model for some of the younger players. And you hear that all the time. Young players coming into the league that they've had, this veteran player who really taught them all the ins and outs and what makes you successful in the NHL, how to be a good professional hockey player. And they're not getting any of that. And you feel really bad for them. And Cole Caulfield's a perfect example that we all thought he was going to be doing much better, but you can blame him, obviously, because it's on him, but he's not surrounded by the leadership group. And that's something we've heard a lot from the Montreal Canadiens, having those character guys in the locker room and how important it is to have that. And we're not seeing any of that this year.
Yeah, the lessons the young players are learning is how to accept losing, how to not defend your teammates, and how to stop playing when you don't like the coach. I mean, those are bad things to
That's the first time we've mentioned Dominic Ducharme on the show today.
Well, those are bad things to learn. I mean, there's veterans. Jeff Petrie is obviously checked out on the coach a long time ago. I mean, it's hard to explain how poorly he's played and just the disinterest he has. Who knows what's going on off the ice. I know his family's back in Michigan. That's got to be hard for him, being away from his wife and 3 boys. But, he spoke out months ago about how he didn't like the system and guys are running around on their own end. And he obviously doesn't respect the coach or doesn't like what the coach is doing. And I guess, as I said at the time, I'm sure he was speaking for other players in the room also. But it's just not good. And yeah, it's a lot of bad lessons for young guys to learn. And, they lost a lot of the key leaders from last season. Marc Bergevin just let too many of the key leaders go. Philip Deneau, never mind what he did on the ice as a player. I think people are realizing maybe now how much of a leader he was in the room, how much of a respected guy he was in the room. And Corey Perry gone, and, with Joel Edmondson missing. And there's just so many leaders gone, and the leaders that are there haven't really been leading. And I think, going back to the start of the season, I think it was a huge mistake when Marc Bergevin didn't name a captain to replace Shea Weber. I don't know how you can be captain of a hockey team when you're at home on your couch in Kelowna. It doesn't make any sense. This team started the season without a leader, and they've played like a team without a leader all season. And if I'm thinking if Kent Hughes and Gorton are talking about all these decisions. I mean, one of the key things they need to do is they need to name a captain. And Kent Hughes has already said that there will be a captain next season. If I'm Kent Hughes, it might not be a bad idea to name a captain before the end of the season to try and get things back on track as far as just a leadership issue in the room and as far as guys sticking up for each other and caring and all this stuff I mentioned earlier.
So I know Brendan Gallagher is probably going to be your pick for captain if you were Kent Hughes.
Yeah.
Is he like the de facto like number one absolute option? Is there anyone else on the roster as it is right now that you could see the management structure saying, you know what, they should be captain next year?
To me, Hughes is going to sit down with Brendan Gallagher and tell him what we're going to do, and whether it's a reset, rebuild, whatever. And do you want to be here? Do you want to stick around here for this? And if Brendan Gallagher says yes, the day after the trade deadline or 2 days after the trade deadline, I'm holding a news conference and announcing Brendan Gallagher as the captain of the team moving forward. This team needs something positive to happen. And putting the C on Brendan Gallagher is saying, this is the guy who's going to lead us going forward. This is a guy who gives 100% effort every night. And he's always had a voice in the room, but make his voice in the room louder. Don't have it like, well, is Brendan the captain? Is Nick Suzuki the captain? Is Peachy? Here's the guy. He's the voice in the room now. And because you got to salvage something from this season. And if you can salvage some pride in the CH, that's a big thing. And nobody wears a CH with more pride than Brendan Gallagher.
And something you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, but Carey Price being at the games over the weekend, isn't that the first time he's been at the Bell Center?
Well,
that's the first time I've seen him there.
I also wondered, they were in a private loge, and usually the guys who are watching the game are in the locker room or wherever you don't see them. I'm wondering if that was a mandate made by Gorton and Hughes that these guys we're going to show that they're there. Because you're right, Carey Price has been invisible. Nobody's seen him unless you were at practice or after practice and saw him on the ice. So I don't think that was by accident that the cameras were panning up to Carey Price and the other injured guys in the loge at the Bell Center that game.
But that's what I'm wondering, if that's an effect of Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes saying, you know what, we understand you're injured, but you're part of this team. You're a veteran player. You need to be at the games, that we need to show a united front.
Well, why isn't Shea Weber there?
Well, that's why I was going to say I could see keeping Shea Weber as a captain if he was actually in Montreal and it's still around the team and showing up at practices and showing up at games and being in the room. But he's not. He's on the other side of the country. He couldn't be farther away. And to me, that was just a huge mistake. And I don't understand why. I mean, they made it pretty clear. Mark Bergevin made it pretty clear that Weber's not going to play this season. He's probably not going to play again. So why didn't they have somebody else as captain from the start of the season?
I don't know. That's a very interesting point. Rick, do you want the last thought on this before we go to question 4?
I was just going to say that Ken Hughes has been meeting with all the players, and you mentioned Brendan Gallagher's name, and does he really want to be part of this process moving forward? And not sure whether he wants to like it or not. And if that's the case, it's going to be a big challenge for him to be moved with that type of contract and salary that he has. So
that's true.
It's there's a lot of things on their plates right now as far as how do they get this process moving forward to make our team better with what we have. And to go off the beaten path a little bit, the number of injuries that these guys have had this year is obviously top in the league, and you really have to wonder about the severity of some of the injuries. And don't get me wrong, because I had more than my share of injuries, but when guys every day are coming up with these type of different injuries, I don't totally understand, because it's 2 and 3 times a week. Sometimes you got these guys that are coming down with injury, and it's going to be weeks before they come back. And I always think back to the way that some guys handled injuries in other teams, and they said they used to make it so miserable for those injured guys, that they want to come back and play. And they used to, bring them in at 7 and do everything that was painful to basically hurt them, beyond what the original injury was, and they want to come back and play. But anyways, that being said, just a real concern about all these guys that are going down with these multitude of injuries and why they're happening. Big question mark in that department also.
And the thing is, also, I think one of the reasons they're having guys out so long because they want to lose, right? They want to get a solid draft pick. So you tell David Savard, okay, stay home for 8 weeks, and you tell these other guys stay away from 8 weeks. But just to go back quick with the Gallagher captain thing, Gallagher's an honest guy, and from everything I've heard about Kent Hughes, everybody talks about his honesty. So I think Kent Hughes will be honest with Brendan Gallagher about what he's going to do or what he plans to do building this, and I think Brendan Gallagher will be honest with him. If Gallagher says, okay, I want to stick around here and stay here, he'll be honest about it. And if he doesn't, he'll be honest about that. And again, I think if he's honest and he wants to stay here, I think you make Brendan Gallagher your captain.
Love that discussion on the future of the Canadiens captaincy position. I have a fun last one for you guys. The Canadiens have been outscored 26-11 in their last 4 games. Okay, when you read that stat, it's not as fun. But I want to know from each of you, and I'll start with you, Jess. Do you think that stretch will be the low point of the season, or could it actually get worse? Basically, just tell me, is it going to get better than 26-11 or worse?
I think it's going to get worse because they're showing no signs of progressing. They had that one streak where they had those overtime losses, and then everything started to fall apart again. So, no, it's going to get worse.
Definitely going to get worse because they're going to trade away some of their Ben Sherrod, who plays 20 whatever minutes a game. Jeff Petrie, who plays 20 whatever minutes a game, is likely going to be gone. Who knows who else? So they're gonna be worse. The team they're gonna get worse, not better, moving forward. So it's a good chance this team will go the entire season without winning 2 games in a row. And the way they've looked recently, you wonder if they're going to win 1 game in a row the rest of the way.
And you have to, really look at every team that they're going to be playing against are fighting for position in the playoffs. So Canadiens, what are they playing for other than pride and, trying to show that they really care, which I don't believe they do. So, that being said, I don't see a lot of positive, on this last stretch where things are going to get turned around because they're playing for nothing. It looks like they're playing for nothing, and then continue to take shortcuts and just try and get through the game and count the number of games that are left so that they can make their plans to do something in the offseason. So it's really a sad state of affairs there, and I'm really disappointed to see that they had to come to this. And guys, like we've talked about before about the pride situation, pride of a job well done. I no longer see it in their mindset in the group of what they have.
Well, nobody coming to the defense of Montembeault, as we mentioned, Rick. Guys around the league see that. So you're a team in a playoff fight. You're coming to play the Canadiens. In the room, you're saying, let's run these guys out of the rink. There's no fight in them. Run over the goalie. Let's run over these guys. Let's make sure we're up 4-5-0 halfway through the game and make sure we get these 2 points, because they're the free spot on the bingo card right now in the NHL, the Canadiens.
So basically, I shouldn't make a bet that the Canadiens are going to win a consecutive game between now and this year, and the end of the year? No? Okay. All right. Well, it's a good thing I haven't done that bet yet. Anyway, this was another fun episode in the books, even though this season has not been much fun for the Montreal Canadiens. I know some people probably would wish, who are covering the team anyway, would wish the team would be a little bit better. But we'll see how things go for the rest of the season. And I guess I should say this now. If you're watching this and Dominique Ducharme has been let go, we're not wishing that on anyone necessarily, but if that has been the case, we're sorry we didn't get to it because, well, it clearly happened after we recorded. But anyway, that's all we can do with the power of the internet. Subscribe to our YouTube page. We're trying to get to 11,000 subscribers. We're getting very close. Subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out newsletter, montrealgazette.com/newsletters. And of course, hockeyinsideout.com is the website to go to check out full episodes and other fun stuff.